The dispatcher servlet can pass much more sophisticated information than just simply extracting parameters from the HTTP request and dumping them into method parameters. It can actually extract entire objects from an HTTP request and pass them as method parameters. And by objects, I mean something more sophisticated than just a string or an integer. Actual custom Java objects that you specify through your own classes. So let me give you an example. How would we use this? Well, let's say our search method, we wanted to have a more sophisticated search capability. And to do that, we wanted to create a search object that would specify the parameters of the search and hold all the data needed to do our more sophisticated search. And let's just assume we have a simple object which has a first name of the person that we're searching for and a last name. So we can have two queries. We can have some string that will match against the first names and some string or expression that will match against the last names. And maybe we had a mode so we can do regular expression matching versus non-regular expression matching. And we wanted to have a sophisticated search mechanism. Well, we would want to be able to take an HTTP request and we would want to extract all of this information and then convert it into a search object which the search method would operate on. Now, of course, we could spell out all of these individual things that would be contained within the search object as individual method parameters of the search method. But that kind of limits our flexibility because every time we wanted to add a new parameter, we'd have to go and change the search method and add the appropriate request mapping to it and the actual request parameter or path variable or however we're going to extract this information. So what we'd really like to do is have a single object that is passed into search, and then search can do whatever it needs from that single object. So how do we do that? Well, in Spring what we can do is we can create and say, well, we're going to have a search object as a parameter. So we'll call it S. And so when the dispatcher servlet calls search, search is going to expect that one of its params is just a search object instance. So how do we go about telling the dispatcher servlet to convert and assume that all of the parameters within the HTTP request are actually an instance of this object? Well, the way we do that is with an annotation called @requestBody. And what this annotation does is it tells it for this particular parameter, search, S, we want you to take all of the HTTP request parameters and automatically convert them to an object of this type. So because this is a search object, the dispatcher servlet knows when it sees @requestBody that it's going to have to take all of the HTTP request parameters and automatically convert them to an object of the type search. So we've got our search class here, and there are various automatically pre-configured HTTP objects inside of Spring that take care of mapping these HTTP request params into search. And these are HTTP message converters. So whenever an @requestBody is seen, an HTTP message converter, and I'm just going to abbreviate this to make it easier to fit on the board here, is used to look at all of the request parameters and then automatically construct an object and map all of those request parameters to the various method parameters of the getters and setters, as well as the member variables within this object. And then once it's constructed and it's completely well formed and ready, it then passes it into the method. So this is another very important and powerful aspect of Spring, is this automatic data marshaling from HTTP request parameters into objects that you want to be passed to your individual methods.